Okay then everyone, so hopefully you've now got your spaceship travelling both left and right on your game. So I'm pressing left and it's stopping on the edge of the boundary, and it's going right and it's stopping on the edge of the boundary, which is exactly where it should now be. So let's just close that down, and what we should now see is that your code should look like mine. We have one intersect boundary, we have one press left, we have one press right, we have one release left, we have one release right. Now I'm missing a few steps out at this stage, but this is just the fundamental basics to get ourselves started. What we're now going to add is some capacity for our player to shoot. We need some way that we can shoot bullets and destroy enemies. We haven't got any enemies yet, but we've got to be ready to shoot them. So we're going to start by creating a new sprite by right clicking on the sprites. I'm again going to load a sprite just as before. It's defaulted to taking me back where I was, which is in the sprite subsection and the space one. This works fine for me, but again you can make your own. Because my character is going to shoot up, we've got all these different icons here, but I can see that none of these perhaps are suitable. They're all facing right. So I'm going to edit a sprite, and I'm going to do File and New, and I'm going to use Baby Paint, and I'm going to press OK. Defaults to size 32 by 32 pixels, and then we can create that. If you're not familiar with how transparency works, perhaps in Photoshop, anything that's got that kind of grid behind it where you've got grey and white checker pattern, that means this is transparent. It won't actually be white or grey. By double clicking onto that brings us into our edits, our actual options that we can have. What you'll find here is that we've got this thing that we can edit. To actually draw a line right now would be incredibly difficult to do straight, especially using the basic brush tool. So I'm going to press Control and zoom in with my middle mouse to make that fill up more space. Doesn't make it any bigger, still 32 by 32 pixels, but gives you more space in which to work. I'm going to grab a rectangle. I'm going to stick with the most basic rectangle I can have, and I'm going to have a yellow bullet. I'm just going to make it broadly the middle of my object. It's going to fill up about that much of my sprite. Again, just as before, I'm going to tick to say that that's done. And just as before, we're going to call this SPR underscore laser. This is going to be our laser beam. What I am going to change here is I'm going to introduce the idea of the point of origin. The idea of the point of origin, and if I can't see it very clearly here, but it's defaulted to 0, 0. If I click on my object and move it around, this is the center point. This is the point of creation and where all the maths are done from, is the point of origin. I'm going to center that, because what I want to do is when my bullet is made, I want that to appear at the center of my spaceship rather than appearing at the top left hand corner, which is what would have happened by default. So I'm going to press OK onto my SPR underscore laser. I'm going to go back to my SPR underscore spaceship. And I'm going to do the same thing with that. I'm going to center a line, the point of origin. You can manually move it, but it's a little bit more difficult. You can type in values of your choice as well if you just wanted to type them in there, 16 and 16. What I'm now going to change is I'm going to create a new object. And this object is going to be called, again, the same pattern, obj underscore laser, as before. We're going to associate the sprite, and we can see that it's going to start getting quite big quite quickly as we're doing this. The only job that laser is going to have at this point is to move up. That's all it's going to know, is to move up. So we know that we can do directions. The challenge is, though, understanding which event is going to work, because it's not going to be a key press is going to move up. That's going to be something making the bullet will be different. All the bullet knows in its short little life is to go up. This is to do with the create event. As soon as something spawns, as soon as something is created, it's going to move up. So again, right hand side, control panel, bit of code. We know that speed is important, and I'm going to start with a speed of 10. I want it to be faster than my spaceship, but you can change these values whatever you like. And my direction. If you want to pause it now and figure out which direction it is, all well and good. If not, the direction is going to be 90, because that's the up direction. We remember that right is 0, up is 90, left is 180, down is 270, and then all the way back to 0, which is 360. And then just to test that this works, I'm going to go to my room, just as before. I'm going to add a laser into my room. We're going to remove this in a second, but I like to test. I test basically every chance that I get. My laser goes up, and he's still going. And he's still going, and he's still going. We're going to have a look at some of the interesting problems of that later on, but the laser is working, and I'm going to right click to remove it. We know that it moves up. Next thing is that my spaceship, I'm going back to my object spaceship, needs to create those bullets. It needs to spawn it. This one, we are going to use a key press just as before, and I'm going to set mine that when I press the space key, it's going to spawn bullets. Now the code is going to start getting interesting. The instructions here, and the thing that's really difficult to wrap your head around sometimes, is that there is nothing you can't do in GameMaker. The challenge with programming GameMaker is making everything as small as possible. Now, I need to deal with objects. A keyword to do with objects is instance. Instant means deal with an object in some capacity. Now, I've typed the word instance, I-N-S-T-A-N-C-E, instance, and that's given me all the things that I can do with instances. I can activate, I can copy, I can do all sorts of things. The thing that I want to do is create. Now, if you're unfamiliar with programming, it might seem a little bit overwhelming at the minute, so let's talk through what this means. With the bit that's highlighted in blue, you can see that instance underscore create, and it's then got three things in brackets. It's got an X, a Y, and an OBJ. They're separated by commas, and as I said, in brackets, open and close brackets. I can press enter, and that will autocomplete for me, or I can carry on typing it out, it doesn't matter. What you'll now see down the bottom right hand corner is my guide, the same information I had before. What the X, Y, and OBJ are here, they're properties, they're parameters, they're things that this instruction needs in order for it to complete. You'll also notice that this line is red, that means this is not yet complete. I tend to open and close my brackets together to make sure that if I started one, I haven't closed one. What you'll also notice that I've got is that the X has now gone bold. That is saying, I need you to input an X value. What is the X value that we want? Now, what I want to say here is I can type in a number. I can type in 20, and that will spawn a new object at position 20 on the screen, or the X of 20. This, however, is no good. I want to say spawn at where I am, spawn at my X. I am the spaceship, spawn at my X coordinates. I want to say spawn where my X is. I've just typed in X there, lowercase, comma, and you'll notice that Y at the bottom there has now gone bold to say I'm now dealing with the Y. Well, I want my Y coordinate, and then it wants to know which object it should spawn. And this is why naming is so important. I want to spawn obj underscore laser, and again it might autocomplete. You will notice that the text goes a different colour, goes that kind of off shade of orange, perhaps yellow, to say that it's right. It also autocompletes like that, or I can type it in fully. What I'm going to do at this stage is get in the habit of writing in comments. Comments are very useful because it tells you what code does. So, with two vertical lines, this is a note to myself. This won't impact the code in any way, shape or form, won't change what it does, but is a note to yourself. This is useful and, spoiler alert, important later on for a high grade. So I'm going to put a comment in here to inform me what this is doing. Spawns a new laser when space is pressed. So it tells me what he's doing, and it's good practice. It goes green to say that this line of code doesn't do anything. It's not code, it's a note to you as the developer. So now to see if that works, when I press space, it should create a new bullet. So I'm pressing space. It's a little bit too big, but the idea is there. And you can see by tapping space, it will spawn a lot of them. Okay. For now, that's all we need in terms of the player shooting. We're going to add in our enemies next, so we can actually go and have something to defeat.